I also own a dump trailer junk removal company, because one of the things that I learned from HEB is you want to own as much of the value chain as you can, right? So HEB owns trucks, they own manufacturing plants, they own the warehouses, the stores, so they own as much of that as they can, because that allows them to control profitability. So with real estate, I'm trying to apply the same point of view, right? I want the construction arm, I want the investor arm, I want the junk removal arm, because all of that ultimately feeds the other.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Real Estate Podcast. Today we have a very special guest. We got Robert Martinez, broker owner of Moment Realty, entrepreneur, part of the Entrepreneurial Academy and community, and he's a real estate investor, broker, has done a lot in real estate. So I'm very excited to have him on the podcast today and have him tell your story.
Awesome.
So if you don't mind, I really like to start it off by learning about where you're born, kind of how you grew up,
Sure.
and kind of what your childhood was like to bring you to where you are today.
Okay. All right, great. Yeah, so I was born in Houston, so Pasadena, Texas, so South Houston area. I've lived in Texas my entire life, so have an older brother. So we lived Pasadena area, primarily with my mom for when I was 2 years old. And we lived there until junior high school. So we moved from Pasadena to a small town outside of Waco named Lorena. Most people don't know where that's at. That's about 15 miles south of Waco. So when I was in 7th grade, my brother was a freshman. We moved there. So spent 6 years. Very different place growing up culturally. I grew up in South Houston, where it's pretty high Hispanic and minority area, to kind of fit in, blended in well. Moved to a place that I was one of very few non-Caucasian folks, so had to make an adjustment, but it was a good change, right? I think getting exposure to different lifestyles, different upbringings, from moving from a lower income area to a more medium to high income area, I think it opened my eyes to a lot of things in life. But lived there, graduated high school in 2000. And then moved from the Lorena area to Austin. So I was in Austin to attend UT for my undergrad in business from 2000 to 2004.
Okay, and it's Lorena?
Yeah, Lorena, Lorena.
Got it. And so when did y'all move to Lorena?
So I was in 7th grade, so 94.
Got it.
So I was 13.
Okay.
Middle of middle school. My brother was going into freshman year, so it's kind of the good thing about moving was, I was in sports. I played football, so that helped me kind of adjust and assimilate pretty quickly. I was a fairly large young man at 13, almost as big as I am now. So, I played pretty well, and I was able to fit in with the group pretty quickly when I got there.
What had y'all move from Pasadena to Lorena?
Yeah, interesting story. My mom and dad actually met in Waco. So my mom was born in the Waco area, just north of Lorena, and my dad's family, his younger two siblings, my aunt and uncle, went to Lorena High School. So we actually moved into my grandfather's house in 94. My grandfather had passed away in 91, so nobody was living there. So we actually moved into his home to get us just into a different market. My brother and I were in South Houston, not a great area, a lot of gangs, a lot of crime and bad things happening, and we were kind of getting pulled into that lifestyle. So luckily my mom was paying attention and said, this probably isn't a good place for my boys, and figured out a way to get us out of there and into a different environment where none of that stuff was present in Lorena.
Yeah. And what was you had said is a big change, obviously, from, culturally and just your surroundings. So what was kind of some of the, biggest changes that you had to get accustomed to? Yeah,
I think probably one of the biggest things was just, everyone around me in the Houston and South Texas area, or the South Houston area, was like me, right? I went to a school that was probably 85% Hispanic. Everybody kind of was in the same financial situation. Looking back, I understand that now. Probably didn't know at the time why it felt different. But the environment obviously has an influence on you, right? So the gangs in the schools, the fights, all the things that were happening in the Houston school. When we got to the Lorena school, that wasn't a thing, right? Everybody, most people, not everybody, I'd guess 85%, had both parents at the house. They all seemed to be doing well financially. They all had name brand clothes and shoes and all these other things where that wasn't our norm.
Right.
So it was definitely an obvious change in socioeconomic status, and it was, you know, very different because it was, I think Lorena is still today probably 90+% Caucasian as far as the makeup of the community, because it's a rural kind of farming town primarily. So that was different too, because, you know, I didn't look like other people that I was walking into and interacting with on a daily basis. So that was a change, and just we didn't have the same stories, we didn't have the same background, so we had to find something to relate with. And for me, that just became sports.
Football.
That became football, right? You know, that is what was, I think, helped me make friends quickly, because I basically landed. We moved that whatever weekend we moved. I don't remember the dates, but we moved that weekend, and then school started the next Monday or Tuesday, and football practice started the next Monday or Tuesday, and we were in it.
Yeah.
So it was.
What position you play?
Then I think I was playing defensive tackle and center. So I was lineman.
Okay.
Because I was 13. I was 5'9", 180 pounds.
Yeah.
So I was a big guy at 13.
Yeah. Okay, and you played football all the way through high school?
I did. Yeah, I did. I played all the way through senior year. Captained the team when I graduated. You know, graduated fourth in my class. You know, I had a very successful time in Lorena. So it was a great change for me, because it exposed me to a lot of things that I don't think I would have got if I would have stayed in Houston. And then it helped me understand the possibilities of, you know, university after high school. What do you do? What do you go pursue? Before I got there, I don't think I had even considered what I would do after high school or what that might look like, because nobody really around me in the Houston area was going to college, or, you know, getting out of high school was probably the goal, and that was probably it.
Right.
Had I stayed.
Right.
Yeah.
And how about for your brother? Did he play sports, or was it?
He did, yeah. He played sports. He was more of a baseball guy. He did play football. He didn't play football his senior year. He was 2 years older than me, but played baseball through junior year. You know, he took a different path. You know, my brother started a family pretty young, so he had to get into work. I mean, he went to school, and he's actually a police officer now, and he's a sheriff actually in McLennan County, which is the Waco area, and he lives in Lorena. Okay. So he
Nice.
did leave for a while and lived in the surrounding areas, but he has 4 boys between 25 and 15, almost 16 now, and they've all went to Lorena. They've all played football at Lorena. They had a game on Friday, so he's living into that life in that environment still, and I think it's working well for them, which
That's
is good.
great.
Yeah.
And so, anybody in your family or growing up that was an entrepreneur or kind of promoted, you know, going into business for yourself or anything like that?
In my family, no. I would say no. I mean, I guess if I really think about it, there was probably one person in my life that worked for himself, right? I had an uncle in Houston, my mom's probably oldest brother, my Uncle Roy, and he was a contractor. So he did roofing and kind of sheetrock. He basically did maintenance work for a guy who owned, now that I know, he owned probably 50 rental properties, because every house we worked on worked for Mr. Hendricks.
Yeah.
So he was probably the only person in my life that was working for himself, but I didn't get that bug, I don't think, from him. I'm not really sure where I picked up that mentality, but he was the only person that, looking back in my family, that had that experience, or that, you know, didn't work a traditional like 9-to-5 job around me and around my life. Yeah. And
so when you're going up through high school, I mean, were you thinking about business at all, or really just thinking about sports, going to play college ball?
Yeah, I mean, I always had the mindset that I wanted to do something in business. You know, my motivation as a young man was, you know, mostly from movies, right? I had a lot of influence from, you know, the original Wall Street, Michael Douglas, Charlie Sheen. Like, when I went into University of Texas with finance, like, I thought I was going to be an investment banker. Right? I wanted to work in New York. I wanted to work on Wall Street, and that was the only direction or the idea that I had. But that was based on, you know, Hollywood. It wasn't based on anybody in my life.
Right.
It just sounded like a good idea. You know, having private jets and limos and, you know, buy $1 million buildings sounded pretty interesting. So that was kind of the idea that I had when I got to school. That wasn't obviously what I ended up pursuing, but that's what got me focused on business. I was always good at math. I was always good at that type of thinking. And interestingly enough, you know, this is a shout out to Lorena, I guess, but I ended up going, my senior year was the first year I went into FFA because I was leaving sports, so my second semester, and I ended up doing a class where we did something called farm business management. So it was basically the same idea of how to run a company, but it was your
About
company
farm.
was a farm.
Yeah.
And I had never done it before, but we actually went to nationals the first year I was on the team, and I think we placed 4th or 5th in nationals when I was a senior in high school in farm business management.
What is the business of a farm?
Well, I think if I recall the conversation, it was a lot around, operating capital and cost, so running livestock, managing the actual land for production, whether that was hay or wheat or whatever, and then looking at your expenses, equipment, how do you manage depreciation schedule. So I was learning that type of stuff in this program, not really understanding what it was, but it was pretty math-based, so I understood the formulas, understood how to apply it. And I knew I was going toward business, so it made sense to me to start to learn that. But that's probably the one place that I started to really get my hands wrapped around the idea of running a business was in actually farm business management senior year.
No, it's cool. I've always been intrigued by farms and ranches, and I've heard that ranches are the only business where the sole goal is to not lose money.
Yeah,
you're just trying to break even.
Yeah.
And I think it's more of a real estate play, long term.
I agree. I mean, we'll probably get to my career after college, or I guess when I started college with HEB. But I worked for HEB for almost 20 years, and internally they talk a lot about that. Right, we're a real estate company that also sells groceries. Interesting. Because they own all of their stores, they own all of the dirt, and a lot of times they even own the whole strip center that's attached to the store that they build. So
Right.
a lot of the value that the family has actually comes from the buildings and the real estate that they own.
Right.
Which now as an older man, I understand that that's what a lot of companies done. Right. The McDonald's did that with the founder. You watch the founder. HEB did the same thing. But yeah, I think the ranch business is the same thing. It's all about the dirt and the long-term appreciation of the ranch, not necessarily what you're producing on an annual basis.
Right. Yeah. Just cover your operating expenses.
That's
cover
right.
Taxes, insurance, cost of cattle, feed, all that stuff.
That's right.
So you went to UT
Yes.
study finance, right?
I did. Yeah. So I have a bachelor's from UT in finance. I graduated 2004.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when you graduated, did you go apply at Wall Street or at investment banks or anything like that?
I yes and no. So UT has a really great program where they bring a lot of companies on site. I don't know if it's still called the Ford Career Center, but Ford used to sponsor the Career Center where companies would come in, they interview for jobs. So there's a couple opportunities that I had in Chicago and New York, kind of as entry level. Like I guess at the time was probably like an analyst role to come in and start learning how to get into the business. But I started working for HEB when I was a senior in high school, so I'd have a job moving from Lorena to Austin. That was kind of my only goal. But I was working full time during my entire undergrad, so when I actually graduated from UT in 2004, I was already the third in charge of a store here in Austin on the Riverside store. And when I looked at the amount of money I was making from HEB versus my job offers in Chicago and New York with the adjustment of cost of living, I was actually making more money, so it would have cost me money to leave. And at the time, I had kind of shifted my mindset to continuing a path and career with HEB, running stores, running operations, because I really felt like I was running a business and I ran the four walls of the store. So it was achieving my goal of being an entrepreneur, running a business. And HEB was also willing to fund a master's degree and allowing me to continue my education. So I ended up kind of turning down a couple of those investment offers or potential Wall Street offers, I guess, if you will. Chicago was the commodities, but
yeah, that's pretty cool. I've heard HEB is a great place to work for.
Yeah, it really is. I worked, like I said, I worked there almost 20 years. My wife has been there for, I think she's about to hit her 23rd anniversary, so she's still there. Her father actually retired after 41 years.
Wow.
So
was he one of the first?
No. So my father-in-law, when he retired, he was running a market in San Antonio, but he started senior high school as a grocery stocker, and he worked in stores in San Antonio at HEB in San Antonio. In South Texas in the Valley, and then retired running the market in San Antonio. So he spent 41 years in retail. Yeah.
Where was HEB started? Do you know?
HEB's first store was actually in Kerrville.
Kerrville.
Yeah. So they started in Kerrville, and then they expanded down to the Corpus region. They tried Del Rio, they tried another market, didn't work, but they started getting some foothold in Corpus, and then started expanding into the San Antonio market.
And look at them now, best grocery store in Texas.
That's right. I think the last I heard, I think we're somewhere north of 400 stores across the state between Texas and Mexico, because there's also like 60 stores down there that they own.
I don't think I've ever seen a better grocery store than HEB.
No,
or like
I don't think
spinoffs
so.
like Central Market I like as well.
Yep.
But like my dad, he was born and raised and lived in Texas his whole life.
Mm-hmm.
He moved to Florida in 2015, and it just hasn't been the same for him. There's no HEB. They got to go to Publix.
Publix is okay, but they're not.
I don't think Publix is okay at all.
Some of them are.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. They have some rough stores too, but they're a good retailer too. But yeah, they're not as good as HEB.
Yeah. Okay, and so when you graduated, you were third in charge of the Riverside store?
Right, yeah. So I was, the position was like an assistant store director or manager in charge. So I was doing that, and then started my master's degree at Texas State in San Marcos, the January of 2005. So I was a salaried leader, running stores.
What did you say it is? Soured leader?
Salaried leader. So I was working, 50,
got it.
I only bring that up because I was working, 5-10-hour shifts, working 50 hours a week, and going to do my master's degree at the same time.
Right.
So it was a very busy time of life. But I was at the Riverside store when I started. I spent a year at the Oak Hill store at 71. And then I was at Bee Caves for a little while, and then I spent about a year. My last store that I was in was Brody William Cannon, the HEB's there. And then when I graduated with my MBA in 2007, my wife and I both moved to San Antonio and actually started positions at the corporate office with HEB.
And so what was your final role with HEB?
My final role when I left in 2019, I was the director of information solutions. So I had about 65 software engineering leaders that worked for me, and we had applications from loss prevention, marketing, what we call design and construction, which was actually all the technology that we use to build stores, like AutoCAD and Bluebeam, to actually design and outfit the stores. Security, so we did all the software that supported intrusion detection, videos. So I had 65 different apps that my team and I ran for HEB software.
Internal software that HEB built?
So it was a combination. So some of it was custom, some of it was COTS, which was what they call off the shelf. So you buy it, but then you run it on an internal server, and then some of it was software as a service, cloud-based, kind of third-party software. So we had all three. And we were running and supporting about 65 different apps my team and I would run.
Wow. And so what would your position be? Just to kind of state what the objective was, look for issues, try and...
Yeah, so my position as director was kind of twofold. One was to understand the business goals and to understand how to support whatever business goals they had with software, either enhancing what we had, bringing on something new, or retiring something that we didn't need anymore. And then the other half was leading the engineering staff that I had to accomplish those goals, prioritize their work, and then make sure things run. One of the biggest challenges, of course, in technology is things go down, systems break, but unfortunately HEB runs nonstop, so we really couldn't afford to have anything not operating for very long. So there's lots of late nights and weekends on the phone, trying to troubleshoot and trying to figure out what was going on to get things back online. But it was probably 50-50, understanding the business goal, making sure we understood what we needed to accomplish, and then translating that really into the engineering staff and delivering that as either a software, as an enhancement to the software.
The understanding the business goals. How would HEB kind of explain the business goals to you? Would it be going to leadership meetings quarterly, or?
Yeah, so HEB's business goal at a highest level was usually pretty clear. It was typically based in growth around sales, profit margins, etc. But because I had individual clients, so for example, the vice president of security and loss prevention was one of my customers. So I met with him once a week to understand, like, what do you need, what support.
What do you mean he was one of your customers?
One of my internal customers. So so the way we operate is, as a director of software, I was responsible for a certain group of the internal business. So loss prevention, advertising, design and construction were all individual departments inside HEB that supported the stores and supported operations.
And so one of those would be your customer and vice versa.
Correct.
Of an internal department of HEB.
Internal department, right. So I had, I think the last time I looked at the numbers, I had somewhere around 14 vice presidents that ran different areas of internal departments at HEB and their associated directors that I met with to understand their needs from a technology perspective, and then based on their needs, based on priorities, timelines, budgets, we would then go back and deliver that with an engineering solution, software, new package, enhancements, changes, etc. So most of my time was spent really engaging with the business customers, understanding their problems so I can make sure that we were solving them with technology, and then ideally bringing them new solutions that would help them improve how they deliver, for example, loss prevention, which is retail shrink, right? How much money we lose from things walking out the door, things being spoiled. Some of the technology that we looked at was right before I left was facial recognition, right? How do we see somebody that looks like Alex walk in the store, and then maybe in a year when we find out something happened, we could still see that was Alex from store to store for somebody who was maybe behaving badly within the store, right? Whether they were shoplifting, stealing certain things. We were looking at different technologies that would help us identify those to help prevent that type of loss, as opposed to reacting after it walks out the door, as one example.
Yeah, and so like an example of that working would be Alex has stolen from a few HEBs.
Sure.
Facial recognition recognizes me when I walk into another store.
Correct.
Somehow notifies somebody there.
We would learn an internal loss prevention specialist to say, hey, there's someone in the store who's a known actor, and we might want to engage him. And one of the other technologies, for example, that I think has been leveraged since I left, that we were working on, is using that same idea around license plate recognition. So instead of waiting for you to make it in the store, we identify the fact that your license plate was the same one that left the previous store doing something, and being able to recognize that you're in the parking lot and having that same type of engagement as an example, and then maybe applying that to some other areas like self-checkout.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's just one small little aspect of what's going on behind the scenes constantly when I walk into a HEB store that would have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that I did before I was in technology, actually, I was in stores for 7 years. I came to corporate in the marketing division, so what we call like shopper marketing today, and help really build the technology and the disciplines around using your identifiers, whether that's your debit cards, your credit cards, to identify who you were without necessarily using like a loyalty card. So we don't have the traditional cards like Kroger does, or like some of the other big retail shoppers do, but there's still a way for us to kind of identify who you are and be able to analyze your shopping behavior. So that was one of the first things that I did that we were doing without really advertising that.
And so what would y'all do when you noticed I'm buying a lot of steak or something? Y'all would
Sure.
send me advertisements?
Yeah, so there would be advertisements delivered through like the printers that were at the stores, the back of the receipts, like all of that started to become targeted. So if you shop today and maybe you haven't bought something in a while, you'll get a coupon from the secondary printer for a brand that you've stopped buying that you used to buy, or you might be introducing a brand of product. One of the things you see probably the most today that we worked a lot on and analyzed was how do we kind of grow your basket. So you might, let's say you normally spend $10 a shop on a particular type of product, dairy or ice cream or frozen pizza, you might get a coupon for 5 off 15. We're trying to get you used to spending $15 a trip to kind of grow your basket without you kind of necessarily intentionally making that decision. The coupon gets you used to buying 3 at a time instead of buying 2 at a time. And then now we can kind of ratchet your basket size up, reduce the amount of trips per shopper, and kind of help grow your share in that category.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I always wondered where I always thought that the coupons that were printed out at HEB were triggered via something I was buying there. Like,
Sure.
That would be like a good add-on to
Sure.
it. However, it didn't quite make sense if I'm already buying it now. Coupon, I'm not going to go back and,
Right. Yeah, it was one of the journeys we went on, right, where at the register, your basket's done. So your intention is trying to get you to hold on to that coupon for your next shop. What you'll see now, and one of the main projects that I launched before going into technology was the digital coupons on the mobile app. So now we're able to deliver those before you shop. So now you'll log on to your digital coupons app at HEB and you'll see, well, here's a coupon for 5 off 15. And you might have it in your app, but I might not have it in mine, because now that you're identifying yourself with coupons for digital, we're able to identify you and ideally give you those coupons or offers that will allow you to spend more, or change your shopping behavior, or introduce a product to you, but we can get it up front before you put the items in your basket. So that was the transition we worked on that I helped drive back from 07 to 14.
Interesting. And so does HEB have a profile on every shopper who's shopped there more than 2-3 times or something like that?
Yeah, ultimately, if you're identifying yourself with the coupon app, we're going to build a profile on you, because every time you identify, it's going to come into a grouping and a historical view. The other way would be looking at your tenders, right? So your credit cards, your debit cards. One of the challenges we always ran into with that was people don't just use one card. People have 3 or 4 cards that they might use depending on the time of year, the time of day. So there was a lot of effort also going into trying to tie those individuals together, right? Because Alex Kaufman might be unique enough to where these 3 debit cards are probably all you if we see them in the same store, but Robert Martinez is pretty hard to connect. I might not be the only guy with that name walking through, San Antonio number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, this is very interesting, and sorry for talking so much about HEB if you didn't plan on it, but I'm sure that I'm sure that this has shaped your view on building your own business, because you've obviously done a lot there. You were there for a long time. Really great company.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot you learned about culture. Obviously, working on the corporate side, technology, growing, kind of how because it's fascinating. I haven't built a big business like HEB, and I get very interested in how they were able to accomplish that.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of value. I will never discount the time I spent there, because the things that I was able to learn at HEB for a large scale company and what they do and how they think about things, it definitely influences how I work today. I own my brokerage, and we're doing residential real estate, buying and selling. We're working with investors, but I also have an ownership stake in a construction company. I also own a dump trailer junk removal company, because one of the things that I learned from HEB is you want to own as much of the value chain as you can, right? So HEB owns trucks, they own manufacturing plants, they own the warehouses, the store, so they own as much of that as they can, because that allows them to control profitability. So with real estate, I'm trying to apply the same point of view, right? I want the construction arm, I want the investor arm, I want the junk removal arm, because all of that ultimately feeds the other, right? I've done several real estate deals that became construction jobs. I sold houses, and then we immediately turned around and spent $40,000-$50,000 with the client to enhance. And I've also had investors where we did the construction, and then I listed the house for sale. So those work together, and I think that vision that I have to kind of expand and hit more of those verticals in real estate completely comes from me being at HEB and watching them do that successfully.
Yeah. What else did you learn from HEB on like a culture perspective? Because as you now are a broker and start bringing other agents on, don't know if that's your goal or not, but I'm sure that there was a lot learned from working at HEB 20 years, your wife 23 years,
right?
Her father longer than both you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
That's very impressive that HEB has a lot of loyalty and really brings people up within. Yeah,
it was very it wasn't very uncommon for us to walk around the Arsenal, which is what we call the corporate office, and see 20, 25, 30. I saw a social media post a couple days ago from one of my friends who still works there, and they were celebrating a partner who just retired after 47 years with the company. I'm like, how old were you when you started, right? But it's definitely
13.
Yeah, exactly right. So from a cultural perspective and kind of understanding and managing, what you want the culture of your company to be is definitely something that I've been able to transition into Moment Realty. And what I've found is that for me, what I usually end up doing is I probably talk to 15 or 20 potential agents before I end up having a conversation about having them come on. And a lot of that conversation and a lot of the, I'll call it the deselection process for me, is just not finding that match as far as what I want someone to be, the mentality and the culture I want them to have as they're coming into the company, because I want people who are very service oriented. Like I want people who care more about their customers' outcome than the amount of commission that's going to be on their check. Because at the end of the day, we're in a business where the money's going to come, is every closing is going to create a check, right? Whatever that check amount is. But if we're focused first on educating our customer. We're focused first on educating them on how the process works, making sure that they're getting a property they're going to enjoy, and we care about that first. Then we're going to have longevity that other people who just care about, well, let's get them into a house and I don't care if I ever talk to them again. And there are some people that are like that. They operate that way, and that's fine. I mean, that's what they're going to do, but that's not how we're going to operate.
Yeah.
Our slogan is success through client education, and
Right.
it is a big focus for us, is that we want people to know and leave our transaction understanding more about real estate than they did. And I was amazed my first couple of years in this, where I had, because of my HEB clients, a lot of my clients in my first 18 months were people that I worked with there, other people that were coworkers or that we knew, that we had done projects together, etc. And I was always amazed. Some of these people had bought and sold 3, 4, 5 houses, and when we sat down to really talk about the contract and talk about the process, how little they really understood from their previous engagements with agents, and how
Right.
little they really understood about how things work. So I really took that as a way to really focus on, well, I want you to leave understanding more. And I kind of look at it as, I want to meet all of my customers kind of where they are in their journey for real estate, right? So whether you're first time home buyer and know nothing about real estate, I'm going to start with the very, very basics. But I have clients that have 45, 50 doors, and they know a lot about real estate, but there's still a lot I can educate them on even after 45 or 50 doors that they haven't experienced. So really tailoring our message, tailoring what we're focused on for each of our customers is one of our big focuses.
Hey, this is Alex, and I'm the co-owner of TRE. Since the beginning of time, real estate has created more millionaires than any other investment, and I want to get you involved in a community that will help you achieve your goals within real estate investing. I know you don't have the knowledge, connections, or resources to start investing today. Most people spin their wheels over and over and over without ever actually taking any action to successfully start investing. That's why I want to get you involved in our community so that you can get the hands-on support, training, and meet the other members that you can start doing deals with in order to start investing in real estate. You need to get in the room with the right people who can help you achieve your goals and get the hands-on support and one-on-one training that you need in order to start investing. Just click on the link in the description to join the entrepreneur community today.
Is one of our big focuses. So that's why I end up having to cycle through a lot of conversations before I can bring somebody on to fit the mold.
Build some loyal customers, and then slowly over time you can start increasing basket size.
That's right. Exactly right. I want all my customers to buy multiple houses from me. Exactly right. I don't need 1,000 customers if I have 200 that I'll buy 5 houses a year.
We have a team at TRE. It's a dynamic duo of Steve and Richard. They have one customer.
Okay.
Or one client.
One client. Okay.
And this client, they have a lot of money in India.
Sure.
And they take that money in India and they invest it here.
Okay.
And they easily buy, $100+ million worth of land every year.
Every year.
One client.
Yeah. And customer loyalty there is pretty important, right? Because if they do something that upsets that client, their whole business is gone, and that's a risky position to be in for them, but it's also a good position if they can manage that relationship and continue to deliver value.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're in there pretty tight, and they kind of run everything for this kind of office.
Sure.
But I mean, back to the idea of be a lot finding 100 people to buy $1 million worth of real estate.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you can get the depth, and you can get buyers who are going to buy from you multiple times, obviously investors who you can work with. I like working with investors because, one, they buy more than one time, and two, there's usually less emotion. They're not void of emotion, because they still get upset, and they still want to make good deals, and they still want certain things, and can get just as fired up about situations. But when it comes down to it, if the numbers make sense, they're going to move, and if they don't, they won't. So
it's a financial versus emotional decision.
Yeah. So investors, in my opinion, they weigh heavier to the financial decision versus the emotional decision, and I feel like every buyer has a balance of both, right? Even first-time home buyers, there's obviously a financial component, but there is an emotional component. They're going to raise a family there. They're going to be there this is the first time they want it to look the way they want it to look. They want it to have the amenities they want it to have, and that's kind of their emotional side. But at the end of the day, they still got to be able to afford it. But investors, if the cash flow is right, if the internal rate of return is right, if the rate and terms of the deal are right, they care more about that. They don't care as much about the paint color and the carpet and the size of the yard, but they care a little bit. So that's where I think that balance is important.
Right.
Yeah.
So when did you start investing in real estate or start getting intrigued by real estate while you're at HEB? Because I'm sure you did you make a transition, or did you?
It was a cutoff and a move. So, but I guess from my investor history, I started investing in real estate before I left HEB. So we had a long-term rental, and we had a short-term rental. We actually had an Airbnb in South Padre that we bought in 2015. So I was still heavily engaged at HEB at that point.
Was that the first one?
That was the first one.
Okay.
Yeah, so we bought that one, and we were using it, for our own enjoyment, but then we were running it as an Airbnb. So that was really the first foray while I was still there. My interest in real estate really has been there for a long time, but I kind of skipped over that story at the beginning. But, we never really, my mom, my brother, and I, we didn't actually own a home until I was, I think, 8th or 9th grade in Lorena. And it was a situation in Houston where my mom had actually got into an owner financing deal while we were there with someone. And ultimately, the short version is she didn't know what she was doing. And when we left and walked away, there was no equity, no dollars, no nothing. And I met a couple other people along the way that I knew, family members or other friends that had that same situation. And ultimately that happened because they lacked the education about how real estate worked.
Was it like a rent-to-own situation, or it was just overpaid for? Or?
I don't know specifically what the issue was because I don't know what the paperwork stated, but it may have been that it was a rent-to-own situation. The understanding that my mom had was that she was owner financing, she was making payments, she was building equity. So the expectation was when we were leaving, we were going to either sell it or we were going to, he was going to take it back and there would be some amount of equity available, and there was nothing there. So at the time I was 13, so I'm not exactly sure the details of what that happened, but I remember how we felt about it, and it definitely felt like a situation where, quote unquote, we were taken advantage of. We didn't get what we thought. Another family member of mine had a similar situation where they were in an owner financing deal. They'd been in the house for 8 or 9 years, and then they found out that the owner wasn't paying property tax, so the county was coming to take the house back, and there was nothing left for them to be able to do at that point. At least they didn't believe they had anything to do at that point. So they ended up walking away from 12 or 13 years of making payments on a house and getting nothing for it. So I've had some situations like that where, again, going back to why the education and the importance of knowledge is so important for me, because I want people to understand that regardless of their situation, there's probably a way out. And I know the communities obviously talks a lot about that, and we focus a lot about creative financing and ways to get people out of a situation that might not be great for them, but that might still be able to leave with something.
Yeah.
But a lot of that's about the education part.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And I mean, it's unfortunate that situations like that happen. I don't hear about them too often, but I'm sure it happens all the time.
Yeah, I think that it probably happens more than people communicate, because they're not even sure who they would tell. Who are they going to tell other than a family member or a friend that say this really didn't work out well for me? And I think that it probably keeps a lot of people afraid to do it again, right? They're afraid to get into a transaction again. They're afraid to go spend money and maybe lose again, so they end up just being renters for the rest of their lives, and they never really end up owning real estate at all because of that bad situation or because of somebody they knew telling them about that risk. But to me, it all comes down to just, you gotta, if you're educated about the situation, you're educated going into it, it's even better. But if you're educated, somebody's with you that's educated on the way out, you can hopefully be in a better situation.
Yeah, like we've got a portfolio of, I think it's 7 or 8 houses in Alice, Texas.
Yeah.
Right now under contract.
Okay.
And it was actually it's the heirs of somebody are selling it.
Okay.
That just inherited it.
Sure.
And the previous owner, the guy, he basically did rent-to-own situations with the people who live there, right?
Sure.
So initially, someone brought it to us to purchase these as notes.
Okay.
Which I've been told that rent-to-own situations are not legal in Texas.
Yeah.
They should have actually seller financed it to
owner
him.
finance, yeah.
So the guy and the heirs still own the properties, and there's non-enforceable contracts in place with the people who are living there.
Gotcha.
Basically lease agreements. So what we have had to do is we're going to buy the properties from the heirs.
Okay.
And then what we're going to have to do is go back to the people who are living there and sign new actual seller finance contracts, transfer the deeds to them,
right.
And actually own the notes. But I mean, if somebody else bought that, they could probably just not honor any of that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Y'all are doing the right thing by trying to honor the intent that was there and the expectation of the buyers. But to your point, legally, you don't have to do it. Y'all are doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do, and,
right.
and that's great to hear, because I think a lot of people would look at it and say, oh well, I just have tenants. I don't have to worry about any equity being built. I don't have to worry about any of these payments made up to this point because none of these documents are enforceable. So we're just going to start from scratch.
Yeah, it was really kind of. I'm sure that happens all the time, and a lot of people who aren't educated, probably get burned in those situations.
Yeah, and my opinion is that it's probably targeted a certain group of people that either lack the education, don't speak the language, etc. There's a lot of reasons I think that they're probably being taken advantage of because of that. But it's unfortunate. But the more people that focus on educating people, the more people that focus on doing the right thing, hopefully that will continue to reduce, and we'll have less and less of that as time goes on.
Right. So, all right. So you brought us back to Lorena. You were saying that your family hadn't bought a property till 7th, 8th grade, or
the start of my 8th grade year is actually the first time my mom was actually able to own a home for the first time. So she's at that point 35, 36 years old,
and that was a big deal.
And that was a big deal, right?
Yeah.
That was the first time we were able to get into a situation where it was our house. Growing up, I kind of sped through that, but we were renters, right? So every single year, for the most part, from as long as I can remember, from 3 or 4 years old, like every year we were moving to a different house, often a different school, because it made financial sense to find another rental that was maybe cheaper or that was in a different area. So that inconsistency was tough, because as a elementary school kid, you're moving every single year. It's hard to make friends. Luckily I had my brother, and he was at least consistency at the new school when I got there. But that was about it. So that getting to being in one town, being in one house, and being able to have some consistency, I think for me was a big deal. I think now as a father, I think that's a very important thing, that I think is important for kids to have that consistency if you can provide it. So once we got there, I definitely felt the benefits of that, being able to build long-term relationships. Like, I don't remember or have any connection to anyone from Houston from when I was growing up, but I still have friends from 7th grade that I still talk to on a regular basis, and they'll be friends for life, because I was in the same place. And those are people who grew up in Lorena and lived there from kindergarten, and
right.
all their families had been there for years and years and years. But that was something that I was able to accomplish there that I wasn't able to accomplish in Houston, and that consistency, or that home, kind of represented that, because we were close to the school. We were everybody kind of came to our house after school because we were close. So it created like a community at the house. Yeah.
And so in 2015, buying the Airbnb.
Yes.
First investment property. You already owned a house that you guys lived in?
Yeah, we owned a primary residence here in San Antonio. We bought this one after my son was born. Our kind of intention was, we'll put a 15-year note on it. If when he graduates from high school, it'll be paid off, and we'll have his college money. So we held on to that one until early 2020.
Oh, you sold it?
We did sell it. It worked really well, but toward the end, it just became a little more pain. We were self-managing. It was, it's a 4.5-hour drive down there. I think the last thing I dealt with right before I decided to sell it was I got a call on a Friday evening. Somebody was checking in for a 2-month stay at Winter Texan. Refrigerator was dead, wasn't working. So it was okay, let me place an order for a refrigerator in Brownsville at 9 o'clock on a Friday night. I'm getting up at 6 to drive to Brownsville to pick up and deliver a refrigerator and drive home the same day. That was probably the last straw after, I don't want to deal with this. It's just too far. It wasn't the management of it. It was just the distance.
Yeah.
Now in hindsight, if I'd just had somebody local that could have handled this stuff for me, I probably would have held on to it.
Right.
But it ended up working out well. We put it on market toward the end of 2019. And then we ended up going under contract and closing about 3 weeks before COVID hit, and everything got shut down where you couldn't go to the island unless you were a resident.
Really?
So we timed it really well. That restriction didn't last very long.
Just
it lasted for a couple months. I think it was a couple months actually. But we closed I think February 15th, 14th of 2020, and then the world changed a month later for everybody.
Yeah.
And we ended up timing it just right, and then we ended up buying a house for ourselves in Canyon Lake, just north of San Antonio, for us just to have a place to go, no Airbnb, just to have a rental or a weekend place for us.
Nice.
Yeah.
So when they shut down the island, do you know, did they have a checkpoint basically?
Yeah, that's what I understood. My understanding was before you got across the main causeway, is they were making sure that you were a local resident, and if you weren't a local resident, they weren't letting you come across the bridge, because they were trying to restrict movement at that time, because nobody knew what was really going on yet. Everyone was kind of fear. So they're like, well, if you don't live on the island, then don't come across the bridge.
Right.
So my understanding is that it lasted somewhere between 6 and 8 weeks, almost 2 months, and then they finally figured out, okay, we're going to let this happen because they're going to be in their house. The businesses ended up reacting by shutting down or restricting hours and things, but I think they got over it relatively quickly. But I think the timing worked out for us.
Yeah, it did. I mean, especially if it was an Airbnb.
Yes, exactly. It was. And, I think we would have probably ended up losing at least a couple months worth of rentals from it. And then my understanding was that it had an impact for a while, because people were a little bit fearful of traveling to houses and whether or not they were being sanitized. So it had an impact for a while. I definitely think it's back, and I think now it probably worth $100,000 more than I sold it for. But you can't go backwards.
What a crazy time.
Yeah.
Back in early 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So y'all bought another property, Canyon Lake.
Yeah, we bought another property, Canyon Lake. It wasn't an investment property. It was just a place for us to have, because again, it was COVID time. Like, we needed a place to escape the house. And we were able to get a good deal. We got a really good deal. Somebody had built it. He was building it for his son. Son told him he wasn't going to move into it. So we ended up getting a brand new construction house for just a little over $200,000 in May of 2020. The neighborhood right now, I've got 2 houses on my street for sale in the 375 range, so I think we did pretty well on it.
Yeah.
If we ever decide to sell it, but the goal is to hold on to that one, and maybe that be the place where we relax once we're old and tired of working.
Do y'all rent that one out?
No, we don't. It's just for family. We'll let some of our family use it. My brother-in-law, my brother, will use periodically with their families, but for the most part, it's just us. It's not listed anywhere.
The Airbnb income that you were getting from 2015 to 2019, is that the only rental property you owned at the time?
At the time, that was it. Yeah. So we started accumulating some long terms in 2020 after we bought the Canyon Lake property. Once I was in real estate full time is when we started adding some additional properties to the portfolio.
Was it generating good income for you guys?
It was. We were covering pretty much everything. I mean, I was probably 95% coverage on as far as the expenses between mortgage, PITI, maintenance, and the associated fees, because one of the biggest things in South Padre is the CAM fees, or the common area maintenance fees, are pretty high. So I think we were paying almost $500 a month on a 2-2 down there, because a lot of it is the insurance, the flood insurance and the hurricane wind insurance is pretty high.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were covering really well, and then we always looked at it as, we typically would use the property 3 or 4 weeks a year. So the cost savings for that versus renting a place for $1,000 a week, we definitely ended up winning.
Yeah, of course.
We probably covered 85-90% of our expenses with what we were able to do on Airbnb.
Nice. Okay, and so tell me about the switch, the cutoff.
Yeah, so I left HEB June 28th, 29th, basically last week of June in 2019. I had already started focusing on my real estate goals as far as where I was going to be heading. So I had my license and was ready to go August 4th. So
why real estate?
Well, real estate was always the thing I wanted to be in, right? I knew that if I ever were to leave, I would go focus on real estate, because I've always had a passion for it. Because of the life stories about not having a house until I was older, seeing people taking advantage of, I always had an interest in it, always watched properties, always wanted to have rentals, because I understood the benefit of both the tax benefits of owning real estate as well as the long-term benefits of having the cash flow. So it was always about trying to generate enough properties to generate cash flow to where I could replace income, or put us in a position to where, if we had $7,000 or $10,000 a month clean we'd know we'd have cash flow to retire on long-term, in addition to anything else that we were doing, like 401ks, etc. So real estate was always the goal. I think, I kind of looked at a couple of different options leaving HEB. Was, did I want to continue down the path of going into another corporate role with a different company. But really, I wanted to go out on my own. I've always had that idea of being an entrepreneur. I always felt like inside HEB, I always found roles where I felt like I ran what I did. I owned my business. And I set goals and I delivered. I felt like I was internal business owner, if you will.
With your internal customers.
Right, exactly. I even treated it like that. So for me, I was always running my business even within the larger company. So this was the time for me to go out and actually, do it for myself. And, my wife and I had a conversation. We understood financially how long I had to be able to start producing money before I'd have to consider, maybe going back to a full-time job. But it's been successful. So I didn't have to look back. I didn't have to change direction and do something different. Real estate was always the thing I wanted to go after. When I first got in, I didn't necessarily have the strong idea of owning the company and being a broker, but working for myself and being an agent was the goal. I pretty quickly transitioned into owning the company because in January of 2020, only 5 months later, another partner and I actually started our own brokerage so I could be a part owner of the company, and then ended up taking it over for myself before the end of 2020. So after about 9 months, ended up taking it over and just running it myself.
He had said, "I don't want to be involved anymore," or what?
Well, we actually had two companies. So we had a mortgage company and a real estate company. So the way we ended up splitting is he took over mortgage 100%. I took over real estate 100%. We're still really good friends. We still talk all the time.
Yeah.
I still try to send him all my mortgage business. But I really wanted to take the real estate business a certain direction. I wanted to be able to grow it with an investor focus and agents who are focused on investment and creating income for themselves in addition to being retail agents. So I wanted to take it that direction, and that was just the right time for us to kind of split to do that is what we did. Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about Moment and where the name came from and why it's spelled the way it's spelled.
Okay. So in 2007, 2008, I owned a design company with another partner of mine that worked for HEB. So he was a graphic designer. He's still here in Austin, Half Elder Studios, if y'all need some good design work. I'm not involved anymore, to be clear, but Half Elder Studios, I don't own it anymore. But he and I had worked together on a lot of different branding projects and things like that, 07, 08, while I was still working at HEB, because I was used to going nonstop, right? I was 50 hours in the stores, going to school at night, so I was used to kind of working all the time.
Yeah.
So when I was just down to just work, and I kind of joke,
like,
just
what do
work.
I do?
What do I do with all this extra time on my
Right.
hands? So we had this company. So I still work with him on a regular basis. So I just called him and said, "Hey, I've got this company. It has a brand right now that was related to the mortgage company, but I need to create some separation here." So he went through his process, which is long and arduous, and I think we started with somewhere around 100 names, and then kind of dwindled it down to Moment. And we really, the goal, and I guess the when we landed on the name, it was really around, it's the moments that you get to spend in your home, right? Like everybody has a story and they remember where they were and it was at their house, whether the first child they had, where they got married, where somebody passed away, whatever that moment in your life was, you can remember the home or the house that you were in. So that's really why I landed on it, why I liked the story around the name, and then ultimately putting the word home inside it.
Oh, I see now.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So the word home is why it's spelled differently. The H allows you to get the word home out of the word moment. So that's how we landed on that. And then I like the way it looks because the O, the H is supposed to look like the keys that's inside the O, so it looks like a key to your home. So it's kind of a triple meaning. And my social is just the O with the key logo in it. So it was multi-level.
Very cool.
The design process,
a lot of
if
thought
you will,
went into it.
Yeah, a lot of time went into it. I'm still working on trying to figure out how to make people pronounce it right, because I get a lot of different,
What do you hear?
I get Mahomet, like Mahomes. The Patrick Mahomes thing happened at the wrong time, because a lot of people is it Mahomes or Mahomet, Homet? I get a lot of different pronunciations of it, but for the most part, people understand it's Moment once I work with them for a little while.
That's a good reel or short TikTok idea.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. I will.
We did one with Typekey because, golly.
Yeah, I
no
can
one
imagine.
says that right.
Yeah, I still don't say it right. I was like, Trey's way better.
Yeah, and that's even wrong, but we just go with TRE.
TRE.
Whatever anybody says, we'll roll with it.
It's us. As long as they call me, I'm good.
Yeah. So cool. And so it was really just kind of You by yourself then at Moment Realty for a few years.
For a little while, yeah. So so it was really me and Matt. Matt Sanchez, Rodson Mortgage was my partner. So it was really he and I. He was the broker. I was really the agent focused. By the end of 2020, I had already picked up one agent, Mike Easterling. So we had one other agent in the office. By 2021, I think I had built up to 8 total that I had at one time. That was kind of the most that I had. Over time, like some of those had cycled out. They either went to other brokerages. I had one of my agents was my assistant as well. She actually ended up doing a lot of my marketing, doing a lot of my social, and she actually got a marketing job with a different company completely out of real estate and is doing all the same things she did for me. So doing all the social media marketing, email marketing, managing the customer relationship. So she was able to leverage what she was doing with me to kind of transition into a full-time job doing that. But right as of today, I have myself plus 4 additional agents. So they're all in San Antonio right now. I've got a couple agents that are in the pipeline for Dallas and one more in Austin that I'm looking to add as well. So my personal goal would be to have somewhere between 20 and 25 agents in total. I don't necessarily think I want to be bigger than that, but I want all of those agents to be, multi-million-dollar producers so that they're all focused and producing what they want. They're producing enough money to feel comfortable. And they're all focused on investing themselves. So I want all of them to own property. Either they already own property or their goal is to own property to be part of the organization, because I want to be able to talk to people about investing and talk to people about how to accumulate and build a portfolio for themselves, because I want them to be able to talk to our clients about the same thing.
And then how about yourself for investing goals?
So for me, right now we have 3 long-term rentals, and I guess technically I have 2, and then one I actually just sold creative financing, so I'm carrying a note on one. So I've got 2 long-terms and then a note on another single family. I would like to personally get another 5 doors in the next 12 months. I'm looking to try to get into some small multifamily to do that, either some quadplexes or maybe an 8-unit apartment complex through a partnership. Because my goal would be not necessarily the doors, but I'd like to get to a place where I'm consistently able to clear somewhere between $7,500 and $10,000 a month from the properties that I own.
Yeah.
Now I'd love to do that with as few doors as possible, but it's going to depend on each one and how well I buy each one before I achieve that number. But right now I've set the goal of 5 additional doors between now and the end of next summer. I set that goal at the end of August. So by next August, I want to have 5 additional doors, or 8 total. You're
going to achieve that, no doubt.
I hope so. I'm looking at a 24 unit right now, so that'll blow that out of the water if we can get that one done.
In San Antonio?
Yeah, in San Antonio. Yeah, it's actually one that came from the community. David brought a 24 unit down on Ware Road. So I've been trying to get some information from the listing agent on that one and understand what the overall financials are. I like that one because it has the opportunity to potentially expand. It's an MF33, so it allows us 33 doors per acre in San Antonio. And there's a space at the rear of the property where I think we could drop an additional 8 units and take a 24 up to a 32 and really be able to maximize that acre. They're all 1-1, so the consistency and floor plan is there. The location is good. It'll always be a great rental area in South San Antonio, just south of Pleasanton Road there. So I'm really interested in getting that one if I can. But that one, based on the price point, even if I get a better deal, will likely take me bringing on a couple of partners to finance it and get it done. But I figure if I can get it done with 2 other people, we each ultimately own 8 doors, and that accomplishes my goal. But if it takes 3 people plus myself, that's still 6 doors a piece, and growing that maybe to a few more if we build the extra unit, that'd be my goal on that one if I can make the numbers work.
Yeah. What price do they want?
List price is I think 1.5. Based on my calculations, I need to get it somewhere between 1.24 and 1.28 to make the numbers work, and the cap rate that I'd like to get from it, because being a Class C, I'd like the cap rate to be north of 10.
Yeah, that'd be great if you can get that.
Yeah.
What's it at right now? 8?
I think it's just below 8. I think it's like 7.2 right now, and that's assuming all the rent rates are accurate for what the rolls claim they are.
You think they're high?
I think there's a little bit of that calculation of the listing is on pro forma, where if they're all at $650 a unit, where I think some of them are still at 6 and some are at $650, so I think it's a little bit less. So if it's a 7 now, I really would like to get it north of. I mean, honestly, if it's at 9.5, it's probably worth going after, but I'd love to get it to 10.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the San Antonio market. We got a lot of viewers who watch from all over.
Sure.
I mean, a lot of our viewers are from different states.
Yeah.
A lot in Dallas.
Okay.
And I mean, we don't own a lot. I don't think we've ever bought in San Antonio. I'd love to, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers feel the same. And you're the local expert. So.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, to me, San Antonio is a great market for several reasons, right? At the end of the day, cost of living in San Antonio is still better than most other major markets in Texas.
Well,
right?
$650 rents.
Yeah, exactly. A 1-1 for $650 is probably lower than normal, but I would say that for a 1-1 in certain parts of San Antonio, $850 is a pretty good standard. Now, don't get me wrong. There's places in San Antonio where a 1-bedroom is $2,000 if it's in the right location and it's a new construction. But having that affordable housing in San Antonio and still having a good mixture, to me, is a big thing. The other thing is I think there's a lot of opportunity in value add in San Antonio, right? There's a lot of things that were built in the 60s and 70s that really haven't been touched in a really long time. And I think there's a lot of people who aren't paying attention as much to that opportunity in the market, just because it's a big town, but it still feels like a small community, right? I think it's, last time I saw it was rated like ranked number 7 as far as population in America as a single town. So it's a big city, a lot of people, but it doesn't feel like that because there's a lot of pockets and a lot of areas where people kind of don't necessarily leave their nucleus about 10-mile radius from where they are. But you can live in, if you live, I live up near Chavano Park in north central San Antonio, but I own property down in Wheatley Heights, like down south of downtown, and I own property on the far northeast side. I own property on the far west side out by SeaWorld. So if you can expand your vision of where in the market you're looking, there's pretty much any type of property you're looking for, which I think that is another reason is you can get Class E value as, or you can get brand new construction Class A. They're building a 400 unit right now right next to the airport that'll probably have $1,800 a month rents for 1-bedrooms.
Yeah.
So it's really a very diverse market of property. And I think because of the high cost that has shown up in Austin, some of the transitions, people coming out of Houston, we're getting a lot of activity, people moving from Houston into San Antonio. A lot of people coming out of the oil and gas industry, I think, that are starting to invest in Bernie, Bulverde, New Braunfels. I mean, New Braunfels is growing amazingly fast. I was talking to one of my agents the other day, and these might not be exact numbers, but they're pretty close. San Antonio City, the average, like the median price for the home sale last month was like $384,000, which is dramatically lower than Austin's probably median number for last month, because I think it was north of 500. But New Braunfels is actually even higher. So New Braunfels is actually over $500,000. So it's this one pocket of real estate that is actually really high priced that most people don't realize that this market has really expensive real estate.
New Braunfels?
New Braunfels,
yeah.
Exactly. So, and that's part of the San Antonio general area.
Right.
But I know we have Austin agents and we have other agents from the surrounding areas that are servicing it. But then you've got the Bernie market that's very similar. You've got custom houses out there in Cordillera Ranch that are selling for almost $4 million. Now those are 10-acre tracts, site-built, beautiful homes. But I can also today probably go find a property. I think I saw one this morning for $95,000 in Wheatley Heights that needs about $40K worth of renovation work.
Yeah, or less, right?
Or less, exactly. So San Antonio really just has a lot of opportunity, I think, because there's neighborhoods and areas that there hasn't been the rapid growth in investment that some of the other markets have seen. So I think it's ripe for the picking.
Who's got better tacos, San Antonio or Austin?
That's not even a question. I mean, San Antonio smashes.
You think?
All day long.
What's your favorite taco place?
My favorite that's a tough one. It depends if we're talking breakfast or lunch.
Let's do both.
Let's do both.
Let's do street tacos and breakfast tacos.
Okay, all right. Breakfast tacos for consistency and availability, because they have about 5 locations. I'd go with Tommy's. Tommy's is and they're the ones that put the barbacoa and Big Red conversation on the map. They actually sell shirts. It's like a barbacoa taco and a Big Red on a Saturday or Sunday morning. You're winning life. But I'd say they're probably the most consistent go-to. There's my nephew and I were actually talking about one of the ideas we've been discussing is our first consistent video products that we might do is what we're going to talk is tacos. Taco Talk Tuesday. So we're
Yeah.
gonna go to a different taco place, eat the tacos, talk about real estate, and then talk about the tacos.
Yeah. I've got a problem. I
You've got a
watch
problem?
all these social media videos on food, and then
Okay.
I got to go eat that food that same
Yes,
day.
yes, yeah, and we think we can create that, and it creates the connection between the fact we looked at the numbers, and there's a road that where my office is at, and in about a 1 mile stretch, there's 7 different places where you can buy tacos in a 1 mile stretch. And we think we haven't done the math yet, but we think we could do a unique taco place every week for approximately 2.5 years and not repeat one time in San
Yeah.
Antonio. Yeah.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah. There's at least that many places that we can get to.
So Tommy's for breakfast.
Yeah.
Lunch.
Ooh.
There's street tacos. Alpha
street-
Store.
Yeah, there's so many places. I mean, there's probably 50 places right now that you could go get a street taco that I don't even know about because I haven't been able to try them all because they're all over town.
Chicharrón con salsa verde.
All of them. So there's I would say there's a place on Houston Street, kind of the again that Wheatley Heights area that I'm talking about, called Terren's, Tren. They have I can't even remember what they're called. I think it might just be called the Terren Taco. But it's got everything in there. I mean, beans, eggs, potatoes, chicharrones, sausage, bacon. Like, it is just a massive, crazy taco. So that one you could do breakfast or lunch, but it's a meal. One taco is a meal. I mean, I think they're using
Sounds
like
like
a 10-inch or 12-inch burrito for that one taco. It's pretty impressive. But for like a traditional or for like a street taco or lunch, one of the most popular places in town is a place called Henry's Puffy Taco. So that's more of a puffy taco, picadillo, lettuce, tomato, cheese. So you really have everything. There's so many places. I mean, we could do another hour just on the taco places. I'll come prepared with the list.
I don't want to ruin all your
yeah, don't take my content. Yeah. Thank you.
Y'all heard it here. I mean, it doesn't even matter about the real estate. Go to San Antonio for the tacos.
Go to San Antonio for the tacos. We'll look at real estate. We'll have some tacos and we'll have a blast.
All right. Yeah. Now I'm hungry for some tacos. I shouldn't have asked that question.
Yeah. Well, it's almost time. You probably earned a taco after this.
All right. So, well, tell us about the future. So we got want to own 5 more doors.
Yes.
Want to get up to 25 investor focused agents.
Yes.
When's that goal?
So the 5 houses is by next August. That's
Right.
my doors. And then once I get to the 5, or if I exceed the 5, then I'll set a new goal until I hit the revenue goal, that $7,500 minimum revenue goal per month of clean, not just top line, but clean money.
I have a
after
feeling you're
expenses.
going to smash that.
I hope that I smash it
5-door goal.
in about 2 years or less, the income goal. The agent goal, I want to be thoughtful about that. So I feel pretty confident that I can add 5 to 6 agents a year, bring them up to speed the right way, make sure that they're producing, give them the tools that they need. So I would say my 25 agent goal would probably be a 3 to 4 year goal to get to that, where I feel like I've got 25 agents that are going to hang around, they're going to be loyal, they're going to be successful, and they're going to be able to stay in the industry as long as they want, right? That's really what I want. I want agents that want to be in real estate until they're tired of working, as opposed to they're going to be in for 2 years, they're not going to find success, and they're going to cycle out, which is what 8 out of 10 agents do.
Right.
But I think that will probably take me till the end of, if I got to set a timeline with you right now, the end of 2026.
Cool. Where can viewers who are watching find you and reach out to you to talk about San Antonio real estate,
Sure.
tacos? Maybe there's someone watching who wants to join you in one of your markets that you're in, or buy an investment property with you.
Yeah, so my Instagram is at Robert Martinez Properties, but I also have an at Moment Realty, so you can find us, the whole office there, or find me at Robert Martinez Properties.
Taco videos coming.
Taco videos coming, yeah, and then I won't say hopefully, but by the first of the year, we'll be launching the our version of the podcast, which is going to be
Nice.
Enjoy Your Moment.
I love it.
So the name of the podcast will be Enjoy Your Moment, focused on real estate, education, focused on ultimately getting people to investment, but we're going to start from the beginning, right? How does this game work? If you're buying your first house, what are the best options to approach it? And we're just going to keep going until we're talking about complexities of 1031 exchanges and cost segregation.
Nice.
And we're just going to build content out until we have everything there. And again, we want people to jump in where they're ready, right? If they're brand new, start at the beginning. If you own 4 or 5 properties and you're just trying to get better and you're trying to learn how to maximize tax benefits or learn more about the investment side, maybe you'll start at video 12 and go from there.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I like that.
That's the goal.
All right, and what would be your advice for maybe someone who's working at Publix right now, who wants to go full time into real estate, or someone who is looking to get started and they just haven't taken that first step yet?
Yeah, my advice is, whether it's myself or one of the other agents at Moment or any, find an agent who wants you to learn the business as much as they want you to buy a deal. If you can find someone who is more focused on you understanding the game and you understanding the process, and the deal will come, find that person and start learning. I think any good agent out there who wants to accomplish that will spend time with you and educate you on that and get you to where you're comfortable, to where you're ready to make that first buy. If you're looking just to be an investor, look for that agent who's going to do that for you. And once you find them, hold on to them, because they're going to be loyal to you and they're going to continue to carry you forward. And as you become more advanced, they'll move with you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Beautiful. You want to come here and say cut?
Come here. Come stand next to Dad. Please, come here.
He said, introduce yourself if you want to.
What's your name?
Jason.
Okay.
Jason. All right. So he brought us in with action. Thank you so much, Robert. And this is the future of Moment Realty, right?
Future owner of Moment Realty right here.
He's going to bring us out. Go ahead and just say cut.
Cut.
All right. All right. Thank you, sir. We really appreciate it. Yeah. Make sure you reach out to Robert. Moment Realty. Meet him in San Antonio. Let's all eat some tacos, buy some more real estate.
Let's do it.
And we'll see you next time.
Awesome.